In this paper, we'll be focusing on English Language Paper 1. So this paper consists of 5 questions, which in total make up 80 marks. Question 1 being 4 marks, question 2 being 8 marks, question 3 being 8 marks, question 4 being 20 marks, and question 5 being 40 marks. You are provided with one source that you must read to focus on for this paper. This paper in total is 1 hour and 45 minutes, for which you should be spending about 15 minutes reading the source and the rest 1 hour 30 answering the paper. So, question 1, it is 4 marks. You are expected to find 4 points / 4 quotations to answer this question, which is pretty much self-explanatory, and you should only be spending about 5 minutes on this. Moving on to question 2, this is a language-based question. So you are expected to write 2 paragraphs as to how the writer uses language to describe a particular thing. So in your first paragraph, you should be doing your point, which is how the writer has used language to describe what they have chosen, which should be a language device. So for example, the writer has used language to describe the rain through the use of metaphor. And then your quotation is your evidence, which would be your 2nd mark. Your 3rd mark comes from analysing that quote, and your 4th mark comes from linking back to the original point, saying how this is described and how this interests the reader. This same structure should be applied the 2nd time round to obtain full 8 marks. Then moving on to question 3, which is a structure-based question. Similar as the language one, you're expected to do 2 paragraphs, but now you focus on the structure devices. So you do your point, which is how the writer has structured this text to interest you as a reader, and you can say, the writer has structured this text to interest me as a reader through the use of foreshadowing. In terms of the evidence, you do not have to provide an actual quotation, but you may just state where in the source it has been used. Your 3rd mark comes from analysing this, and your 4th mark comes back from linking back to the point. Once again, you must repeat this 2 times to obtain full 8 marks. Then moving on to question 4, which makes up the bulk of the section 8 marks, you must do 4 paragraphs. You must do a small conclusion where you say whether you agree or disagree to the statement that's been provided to you. One key thing you must keep in mind is you have to say to what extent. Do you agree to a large extent? Do you agree to a small extent? Do you disagree to a large extent, or do you disagree to a small extent? Then your first paragraph, depending on the opinion you have chosen. So for this video, we'll use the example of I'm agreeing to a large extent. I will say I agree to a large extent, and you say the point, and you say why, and you provide evidence through the quotations, which can be a language technique. You must then describe the language technique that has been used, describe the structure that has been used, analyze this as a whole, what this could mean, why this could interest the reader. Try to provide a counteract opinion for extra marks. So you say, however, this could show that it could actually mean that you agree to a small extent and why. But then always finish off the paragraph linking back to your point and saying, I agree to a large extent. You should then be applying the same structure for paragraph 2, however, now with the counteract opinion. So, for example, as I said in the first one, I agree to a large extent. For the 2nd paragraph, I'm going to say, I agree to a small extent, or I disagree. And the same structure applied throughout the entire paragraph. And then your paragraph 3 should once again be your original opinion. So for the first paragraph, as I chose, I agree to a large extent. My 3rd paragraph should be another one that I agree to a large extent, but with just a different point. And then you should provide a small conclusion saying you agree to a large extent and the points why, and say, however, some people may agree to a small extent and the points why. Always remember, never introduce a new point in your conclusion. If you feel like you had a really good idea, however, you ran out of time to get a paragraph on it, that's fine. Please do not include that into your conclusion. Then moving to section B, which is question 5 and is 40 marks, you're provided with 2 options. You're provided with an option of either describing a picture or writing a story. You can choose either one. And in terms of doing well in this question and obtaining high marks, you must include language devices, similes, metaphors, personification, alliteration, structural devices, how you structure it out. So for example, using different paragraph lengths, using different sentence lengths, using different sentence starters, use a range of punctuation, use enhanced vocabulary, and just use descriptive writing in the sense of creating imagery. That is essentially all the tips you need for English Language Paper 1.